You've probably seen this person before, the coworker who is clearly overwhelmed but still smiles and says, "I've got it." The friend who is breaking on the inside yet insists they're fine. Or maybe it's something you recognize in yourself, that quiet instinct to hold everything together, even when no one is asking you to. From the outside, it looks like discipline, strength, maturity, but psychology tells a different story. People who never ask for help usually share one rare trait, something invisible, learned early and buried deep: emotional self-erasure. Emotional self-erasure is the rare ability to remove your own needs from the room before anyone else even notices them. It sounds subtle, but it shapes everything. Psychology researchers at the University of Michigan call it preemptive autonomy, a reflex the brain develops when support in childhood is inconsistent or unsafe. And Dr. Dan Siegel uses the term protective withdrawal to explain how the nervous system learns to shrink, to stay small, to retreat before hurt arrives. It's not that people like us enjoy doing everything alone. It's that our bodies learned long ago that needing someone was dangerous. So we grow up wearing a mask the world celebrates. People call us independent, reliable, unbelievably strong. They don't see how rehearsed that strength is, how much of it was built in the dark, how often it came from moments where asking for help only made things worse. They see composure, but they don't see the quiet fear behind it. The fear that if someone knew how tired we really were, they might step back instead of closer. They don't see how deeply we've learned to disappear. And maybe this is the part no one talks about. We don't avoid asking for help because we're proud. We avoid it because somewhere inside, a younger version of us still believes our needs are inconvenient, that our pain is ours to carry alone, that disappearing is safer than being seen. If any of this feels familiar, then this story isn't really about me, it's about us. And understanding this rare trait is where the healing begins. Most of us grow up believing that not asking for help means we're simply strong, but this rare trait, emotional self-erasure, isn't strength at all. It's a psychological instinct that develops quietly, almost invisibly, until it becomes the way we move through the world. People who carry this trait don't just avoid help, they instinctively minimize their own needs, soften their feelings, and shrink their presence long before anyone else can notice them. It's not about independence, it's about protection. Researchers call this anticipatory regulation, the nervous system predicting emotional danger before it happens. A 2019 study from the University of Pittsburgh found that people who learned early to monitor the emotional climate around them often internalize the belief that needing anything could disrupt harmony. So instead of expressing emotions, they edit themselves. They remove the inconvenient parts of their emotional life. And the saddest part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. It feels automatic, natural, familiar, like breathing. Emotional self-erasure isn't loud, it shows up quietly in everyday behaviors. The way you answer "everything's good" even when something inside you is unraveling. The way you apologize for taking up time, space, or attention. The way you decide without thinking that your struggles are not important enough to share. It feels like maturity to everyone watching, but on the inside it feels like disappearing. People with this rare trait become experts at managing themselves so completely that no one ever sees their breaking point. And strangely, they often feel proud of this, until they realize pride is just another mask they learn to wear. What makes emotional self-erasure so rare is its combination of two contradictory abilities: deep emotional intelligence toward others and near-zero emotional permission for oneself. Psychologists refer to this as hyperattunement, a pattern where someone can sense the needs of others instantly while being numb to their own. It's why the people who never ask for help are often incredible listeners. therapists to their friend group, the responsible one in every setting. They know how to show up for people because they once learned they had to show up alone. But have you ever wondered why you can't seem to show up for yourself the same way? This trait has a hidden cost. Your emotional radar becomes outward-facing only. You monitor everyone else's burdens so carefully that you forget your own. You downplay pain, suppress stress, reinterpret exhaustion as just being tired. Even physical symptoms get minimized. Headaches, tension, sleeplessness, because acknowledging them feels like weakness. You aren't trying to be heroic, you're trying not to be a burden. And that belief, once formed, becomes the quiet script running your entire life. Emotional self-erasure is not about lacking needs. It's about never giving your needs a chance to speak. It's the rare trait that turns someone into the strongest person in the room and the most invisible one at the same time. And once you recognize it, you begin to understand something you may have ignored for years. You weren't born this way. You were trained to survive this way. Have you been living in survival mode, hiding your own needs just to keep others from seeing them? Emotional self-erasure rarely starts in adulthood. It begins much earlier, in quiet rooms from childhood, when we were too small to name our feelings and too dependent to risk losing connection. Kids don't decide to stop asking for help, they learn it. And most of the time they learn it slowly, gently, through moments that felt harmless but carried a message their nervous system never forgot. For some of us, the lesson began with a parent who was overwhelmed, exhausted, or emotionally drained. They weren't bad parents, they were simply full. And when a child senses that the people they depend on can't take one more emotion, they adjust. You see the tired face, the heavy sigh, the forced smile. So you tell yourself quietly, I don't want to add more. That's the first seed of self-erasure. For others, the emotional climate at home was unpredictable. Some days were warm and safe. Other days felt cold or distant, so you learned to read the room with the accuracy of a radar. You checked their mood before you checked your own. You tested the air before saying anything. And slowly, the safest option became hiding your needs, so nothing, absolutely nothing could risk their love. Some children didn't just adapt, they stepped into roles far too big for their age. Maybe you were the emotional support for a parent, the responsible one, the mediator, the early adult in the household. When you spend your childhood taking care of everyone else, your brain learns to tuck away your own feelings. Needing less meant surviving more. By the time you grow up, self-erasure feels like duty, not damage. Did you ever find yourself taking care of others even when you were still a child, thinking it was the only way to keep things from falling apart? Then there are the children who receive praise for their independence, the ones adults called so mature, so strong, so good. You didn't know it then, but those compliments were instructions. They taught you that being easy to love meant being easy to handle, that the less you needed, the more people welcomed you. Over time, emotional invisibility started to feel like a requirement. No matter how it happened, the message was the same. Your needs are either too much or not important enough. So the child learns to swallow emotions before they rise. They apologize for taking up space. They cry only when no one is looking. They start solving everything alone, not because they enjoy it, but because they believe it keeps them safe, keeps the peace, keeps them loved. And this is the part that quietly breaks your heart when you realize it as an adult. You weren't trying to be strong. You were trying not to be a burden. You were trying to stay connected. You were trying to protect the love you had. Emotional self-erasure didn't come from pride, it came from survival. Does it feel like you've been carrying that burden for so long that now you don't even know how to let it go? And that survival strategy, once so necessary, is the same one that now keeps you from asking for help, even when you desperately need it. When emotional self-erasure follows you into adulthood, it doesn't arrive loudly. It slips into your daily habits so quietly that you often don't notice it happening. You don't say, "I'm struggling." You say, "It's fine, I'll handle it." You don't ask questions at work because you don't want to bother anyone. Even small moments like someone offering to carry something heavy trigger the same automatic reply, "No, I'm good." It isn't confidence, it's conditioning. One of the clearest signs is over-something. You take responsibility for things no one asked you to. You double-check everything. You stay late. You anticipate problems before anyone else sees them. To others it looks impressive, but inside it feels like pressure you can't switch off. Therapist Harriet Lerner notes that over-functioning is common among people who grew up believing their worth depended on being the reliable one. Another sign is the inability to express needs without guilt. You hesitate before sending a simple message like, "Do you have a minute?" You rehearse small requests as if they're enormous. You downplay pain, emotional or physical. You push through exhaustion. You keep moving because slowing down feels like exposing the cracks in your armor, and that exposure feels terrifying. In relationships, things become unbalanced without you intending them to. You become the listener, the fixer, the steady one. People trust you with their feelings because you never show your own. They call you strong, grounded, unshakable, but what they don't see is that this role feels automatic, not chosen. You help because you genuinely don't know how to be helped. Have you ever noticed how easily you slip into being the strong one, even when you're quietly falling apart inside? Another pattern is preemptive isolation, pulling away before anyone notices you need support. You cancel plans but blame being just tired. You wait until problems are fully solved before sharing them. You go emotionally quiet the moment life becomes heavy, not because you don't want connection, but because being seen in your struggle feels unsafe, maybe even shameful. Then there's that ever-present inner whisper, "Don't be a burden." It shapes how you text, how you speak, how you love. You avoid conflict because you don't want to take up emotional space. You avoid asking questions because you don't want to slow anyone down. Even when someone shows care, you step back instinctively, convinced they're better off not worrying about you. It's not rejection, it's protection. And woven through all of this is a quiet, aching loneliness. Adults with emotional self-erasure often feel deeply unseen, even by people who genuinely care. Not because others don't love them, but because they've become so expert at hiding. You're present, but not reachable. Strong, but not supported. Surrounded, but alone. Do you ever wonder why no one checks on you, only to realize you've made it almost impossible for anyone to see that you need checking on at all? Living with emotional self-erasure may look functional on the outside, but internally it slowly drains you. What once protected you in childhood becomes a heavy, invisible weight in adulthood. You keep everything together for everyone else, while quietly falling apart inside. Your nervous system stays in a low-grade survival mode, always preparing for disappointment, always preparing to carry everything alone. And over time, your body and mind begin to pay a price you never consciously agreed to. One of the first costs is emotional fatigue. When you suppress your needs long enough, your system loses its natural rhythm. Instead of emotions rising and falling like they're meant to, everything feels flat, muted, or heavy. Research from Dr. Jonice Webb, author of Running on Empty, shows that emotional neglect, whether it comes from others or from ourselves, creates a deep sense of inner exhaustion. Not because you're fragile, but because you've been carrying two burdens at once: what you feel and the constant effort to hide it. The next cost is a slow disconnect from your inner world. When you silence your needs for years, you stop recognizing them. You're thirsty but don't notice. You're hurt but can't name it. You're overwhelmed but still insist you're fine. This disconnect makes boundaries, decisions, and reaching out for support nearly impossible because you genuinely don't know what you feel until the moment you break. Then comes loneliness, the kind that doesn't come from being alone, but from never being seen. People may love you deeply, but if they only know the strong version of you, the edited version, you still feel unknown. This loneliness grows in the moments when you wish someone could simply notice the shift in your voice, the tension in your smile, the heaviness behind your silence. Another cost is the shrinking of your emotional capacity. When you operate alone for too long, depending on someone begins to feel unnatural. You stop believing that care is meant for you. Vulnerability feels foreign, unsafe. So your relationships stay shallow, not because you want distance, but because closeness requires being seen. Emotional self-erasure also chips away at your self-worth. Each time you don't ask, each time you swallow your needs, your brain learns the same painful message. My needs don't matter. And over years, that becomes identity. And perhaps the deepest pain is the contradiction. You ache for support, yet you push it away. Have you ever wondered why no one shows up for you, only to realize you've never allowed anyone close enough to notice you're hurting? Healing emotional self-erasure doesn't begin with courage. It begins with honesty. The kind you whisper to yourself when no one else is around. Sometimes it comes late at night, when the house is quiet, and the strength you've been performing all day finally cracks. You feel the weight in your chest, the exhaustion in your bones, and a small trembling truth rises. I can't keep doing everything alone. That moment isn't weakness, it's awakening. Dr. Kristin Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, says, healing begins the moment we stop judging our pain and start tending to it. That's where your journey starts, not with power, but with permission. With permission comes awareness. You begin noticing the places where you automatically shrink, the moments you say, I'm fine, when you're not, the way you dismiss your own needs before anyone else can. It's not about fixing anything, yet it's about finally hearing the parts of you that have been silenced for years. You start asking yourself simple questions you never learned to ask. What do I need right now? What would make this moment feel a little lighter? This is the first language you relearn. Then comes the smallest and scariest experiment, asking for help. Not big help, not emotional help, something tiny, almost insignificant. Could you check this message for me? Could you help me carry this? Do you have a minute? Research from the University of Chicago shows people underestimate how willing others are to help and how good it actually makes them feel. So when someone responds kindly, without judgment, without disappointment, it doesn't just surprise you, it rewires something. Your nervous system begins to question a belief it once held like law. If I need something, I'll be hurt. Slowly you learn what strength actually is. It's not endurance, it's not silence, it's not being the unbreakable one in every room. Real strength is knowing what belongs to you and what doesn't. It's recognizing the moment you've reached your limit. It's allowing yourself to be cared for without shrinking into guilt or apology. And little by little you practice receiving, no repayment, no compensating, just receiving. When someone offers help, instead of saying, I'm good, you try a softer truth. Actually, that would help. That small shift is revolutionary. It tells the child inside you, the one who learned to disappear, that they no longer have to. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about finally allowing yourself to be someone human, someone who doesn't have to erase themselves to be loved. In the end, this journey isn't really about asking for help. It's about finally understanding why it was so hard to ask in the first place. Emotional self-erasure was never a personality trait, it was a survival strategy. You learned to disappear, not because you wanted to, but because disappearing felt safer than being seen. And for a long time, that strategy worked. It protected you, it kept the peace, it helped you make it through environments where your needs felt like too much. But now, as an adult, that same strategy has become the invisible wall between you and the connection you quietly ache for. The truth is, you were never meant to live your whole life as the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never cracks. Strength was the role you played, not the person you were. And when you finally let yourself be human, not perfect, not self-sufficient, not invulnerable, you open the door to the kind of relationships your younger self always needed. The kind where you don't have to earn love by disappearing. Carl Jung once wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off parts of yourself, but by integrating them." That's what this phase of your life is about. Not throwing away your strength, but pairing it with softness. Not abandoning your independence, but balancing it with connection. Not rejecting the person you've been, but welcoming the parts you hid for too long. So maybe someday soon, you'll catch yourself about to say, "I'm fine." And a tiny shift will happen. You'll pause, you'll breathe, and you'll choose a different truth. Actually, I could use a little help. That moment, small, quiet, honest, is where everything begins to change. Because healing isn't becoming stronger. Healing is finally remembering you were never meant to carry life alone. If this story felt a little like yours, I hope you remember one thing. You don't have to keep disappearing to be loved. You're allowed to need, to rest, to be human. And if you want to keep exploring the psychology behind why we become who we are and how we heal, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe, share this with someone who carries too much alone, and come back whenever you need a place where your feelings are allowed to exist.